Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Thank you all for being here. Just going to wait a minute for everybody to come out of the waiting room. We're very excited to have you all join us. Please go ahead and put your state in the chat. So if you're in New York, LA, New Mexico, wherever you are, please put in the chat. If you already see your state, if you know LA is already in there, there's no need to re-put in LA or New York. But if you're in a state that hasn't been mentioned, please go ahead and put it in the chat. It's really important for our funders to see where everybody is who we're speaking with today. I just want to remind everybody that the foundation has a COVID relief fund to support thousands of union performers who are going through tough times. This year, thanks to your donations, the foundation has given over $6.5 million to over 7,000 SAG-AFTRA members and their families. So if you are a SAG-AFTRA member and you need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video or on the SAG-AFTRA Foundation website. Thank you for your support. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce the fabulous Carissa Mitchell.
Hi, everybody. Hello, hello.
Hi,
Look at all these beautiful faces. I love it.
And I'm sure there's some familiar faces for you there.
There are.
Great. I'd love to start off by hearing, your journey to becoming an agent and your journey to where you are with your agency today.
Okay, well, I grew up in Wisconsin. I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison in the 80s, and I wanted to go into film and television, and my parents talked me out of it. This was early 80s, and my parents are from Los Angeles, and they didn't want, they were like, we don't want you to go to Hollywood. We don't want you to do that. Do something else. We'll pay for your college, but do something else. And I hear this all the time from kids, that are trying to figure out what to do for college and things like that. So I got talked out of it as an 18-year-old and went into graphic design and photography and art direction and things like that, marketing, and did that for 20 years, had a bunch of children, ended up in I was also like I would do women's counseling, family counseling, special events coordinator, all that kind of stuff. Was in New Mexico. My children were almost grown. And I realized that in New Mexico, the film industry was all around me. And so this was late 2000s. So on a whim, I quit my job and I went back to school. I got a film degree and thought I wanted to go into casting. I was always one of those people that was always looking up. I don't know how many of you remember like Leonard Maltin's book before there was IMDb. So I would always be looking up actors and so interested that Martin Scorsese always uses the same actors in his movies and things like that. I was just fascinated by that and thought I wanted to go into casting. So I went through the film program and really attached myself to the head of the program and told him what I wanted. And turns out everything that I was doing up till then was actually training for being an agent. I started doing casting for indie films, and then those indie films asked me to be the second AD on the show because I'm a mom and I'm organized and I'm bossy and all those kinds of things that are good for ADs and casting and things. And so on the set, I fell in love with actors. I would sit there because I had to be one of the last ones there to do the call sheet for the next day. And I would just sit and talk with the actors that weren't, filming a scene. They needed somebody to talk to them. They needed somebody to help strategize and say, I understand what you're going through. And the actors in New Mexico were begging and pleading to be seen as a professional acting pool. We would get cowboy roles or under fives and things like that. And some of these actors that had been here really deserved, they'd been working so hard, they really deserved to be seen for larger roles and to be seen for recurring roles on television shows and things like that. So I went to my mentor and I said, what do you think about me opening up an agency? And he said, don't do that. There's one that's quietly for sale. And so I took over that agency and I hit the ground running. I had a month-long apprenticeship agreement with the former agent. And on day 2, she said, you're good. And so what I did basically is I contacted all the casting directors and said, I'm new, I have all these clients that you already know, but how do you want me to do this? Like, what is your, and they were like, thank you for asking. Thank you for like asking how we want this process to go. This was before, before a lot of EcoCasts were done and things like that. It was mostly done by mail, and things like that. So anyway, so I hit the ground running and loved it, and just loved it. And I was afraid when I took over the agency, because SAG rules are, if your agency changes hands, you can terminate your contract without any problems. And so I was like, great, I'm going to start this agency and then everybody's going to leave. And they didn't. They stayed, and more people came. And I seriously learned that I had been training for being an agent my whole life. So as hit the ground running. And then several years later, I realized that a lot of my actors were getting really great roles and booking all the TV shows in New Mexico, and then they'd move to LA and I'd lose them. So that's when I started the LA agency, so I could follow my clients to LA. And now I have a wonderful pool of actors in LA as well.
So can you talk to us a little bit about sort of the back end, how that works, how you manage offices in LA and New Mexico? How does it work?
Well, it works with a lot of help. I have really great assistants that help me, and I really, it's a matter, I think of it like a tennis game. All I have to do is look at the ball that's coming over the net and throw the ball back. And so every day I'm dealing with different actors. I'm not dealing with every single one of my actors every day. I'm dealing with the actors that I have to submit for a certain role. They're right for that certain role, or they're getting auditions for that certain role, or they're getting booked for that certain role. And it kind of goes in like these weird waves, where one week I'll be talking to all of my mature actors that are over 50, and TV shows will all come in at the same time, and that episode is concentrating on that. Or one week it'll all be kids, or it's so interesting how that wave sort of happens. And then, over the course of a month, I'll probably talk to every kind of category of person in my rosters. And so it's really cool. It's like, I wonder who I'm going to talk to this week. I wonder who I'm going to connect with.
So I think that you have, some people you represent in New Mexico, some people you represent in both areas. Can you talk a little bit about how you handle talent between New Mexico and LA?
Absolutely. In New Mexico, we are such a the local casting is very different than the LA casting. And in New Mexico, we get lots and lots of TV shows. And once, I'll get grumpy if I don't get at least one person on one episode of everything that's shooting in New Mexico. And so that makes me like, nope. So it's a great place for actors to cut their teeth, to get co-stars on their resume, especially if we have these TV shows that last for years, like Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, Longmire, The Night Shift. Some of these shows lasted 5 years. And so once we had one person on that show, we couldn't bring that person back. They could, unless that character came back, and then it's recurring. But so then I needed more people in that same category, because couple episodes later or a couple seasons later, they might have another need for a person in that category. And so I have to have several people deep, and I have to show the casting directors lots of options for that particular role. So New Mexico is really great. And we can talk later about what it's like to be repped in a local market that you don't live in. That's another whole conversation. But so in New Mexico, it's a great place for people starting out that are looking for co-stars, looking for place to sort of work through that resume thing. However, I have to say that throughout the pandemic, so many people have pulled up out of LA or out of New York and are moving to New Mexico, because it really is kind of a better place to live. It really is. I go to before COVID hit, I went to Los Angeles for about a week every month just to do all of my meetings and things like that. I still have family. I have one child at home still, so that's going to college. So I'm still in New Mexico doing that. And I love getting on the plane to go to LA, and I love getting on the plane to go back to New Mexico. And so, but when you're talking about the Los Angeles market, you guys all know, you've heard the horror stories about, 5,000 people submitted for one role on one episode of one TV show, 6,000, just thousands of, this order of magnitude of insaneness of how many people just like you are being submitted for that role. And so the stakes are higher in New Mexico, in LA. And so I have to look at everyone's resume. Just because I rep you in New Mexico doesn't automatically mean that I'm going to rep you in Los Angeles. It's a much higher standard. I need to have more things on the resume, more different kinds of projects and things like that. So the criteria for Los Angeles representation is much different than New Mexico.
And do you have clients in Los Angeles who you don't represent in New Mexico, or are you representing everybody in LA and New Mexico as well? Or do they
Nope,
have
I have people that are in both. I have people that are just in New Mexico, people that are just in Los Angeles. And I represent voiceover people in New Mexico that are in Los Angeles, things like that. So it takes all kinds. I have to say, I love it when I represent them in LA and New Mexico. And because then I can I know where they're at. I know what I'm submitting them for in a different market. I know, sometimes there's a larger role that comes down the breakdowns in LA for something that's shooting in New Mexico. And so sometimes we can go through the local casting director for those. So it kind of helps things stay a little more cohesive, and I can kind of keep track of an actor a little bit better. But again, they have to have that resume that supports the LA representation.
Right. And do actors who you represent in New Mexico have to be local in New Mexico? Do you have any talent, for instance, who are not in New Mexico or LA, but you represent them?
I do. I have actors that are all over the country that I rep in both cities. The thing about working in a market, or trying to work in a market that you don't live in, has gotten easier and harder through COVID. Before, it just sort of depended on the project, whether they were doing the tax rebates through that state, whether they needed somebody that actually had the driver's license for that state and utility bills to actually declare residency for that state. And some projects are absolutely looking for that. They've come to a certain location because they want that tax break. So they're looking for everyone to be able to sign that residency. But then there's other projects where they just need you to work local hire, which means you're not going to ask for travel or a hotel or per diem, things like that. And then it's up to me to, here's the thing, everyone's reputation is, we're running through this gauntlet of staking our reputation on the actor. So if I'm representing an actor that lives in Chicago or New Mexico or LA or New York for something that's in another market, I'm submitting and I'm saying, I trust that this actor will be wherever they're supposed to be. If they're booked, they will be there. Now we have to be there for COVID tests, for quarantines, for fittings, things like that. And so there's this extra layer of trust that I have to have in my actors, that they will get in the car and be where I need them to be. And so Mars, somebody said Mars, I'll be there. So we have to trust each other. So I'm telling the casting director that I vouch for this actor getting where they need to be and doing the job, not only doing the job right, and not only not, doing something. I have to trust everybody. And so then the casting director has to take my word for it that I trust this actor. And then they have to trust that actor enough to say to the director, I think this is a good choice for this role. So we're all running actors through this gauntlet based on our reputation and our belief that this actor can do what they are saying they're going to do. Now with COVID, it has opened up a little bit because everybody's gone to self-tapes and EcoCast lives and Zooms and things like that. So it kind of has made it a little bit easier to audition for things that are not in the same city that you live in. However, you know, sometimes they'll say in the breakdowns, they'll say only submit people that are currently in that city, or they'll say only submit people who are willing to be local hire and, you know, will adhere to all COVID and quarantines, and which, by the way, you guys all know that changes every week. You know, all the COVID things change from state to state and from week to week as things are sort of slowly opening up. So it's a little bit of a circus to try to get somebody booked, even that are already in that city, and, you know, taking off work and you know, doing the COVID tests and all that stuff. So our world is expanding and shrinking at the same time in a very interesting way, but it really has to be a trust on my part that the actor will be where they say they were going. They'll be where I need them to be when I need them to be there.
It's interesting, you touched a little bit on how the business has changed over the last year. Can you talk to us about any silver linings or efficiencies that you've discovered that you will bring forward with you in the business?
I actually, I kind of don't mind doing meetings via Zoom and via, you know, virtual meetings like this. I actually did during the start of the pandemic, when we thought it was when we thought it was going to be, you know, a month or 2 months, you know, and as summer was rolling on and things, I would just have huge Zoom meetings, and any one of my actors, I would just give everybody the link. Everyone could jump on and we could all talk and we could all stay connected, because I would do once a month meetings in New Mexico and I would do them in Los Angeles too, where everyone could come and just ask questions. And then, you know, if 25 or 50 people have the same question, I'm only answering it once, instead of going, didn't we already talk about this? But so I kind of like this large, you know, this large format of everybody trying to get together. And if one person has a question, I'm sure other people have the same question. And so it's kind of nice. It's sort of exhausting sometimes to have coffee 5 times a day when I should be, yeah, you know, it's like, and then, you know, it's like, is it time to start drinking? You know, I don't know, to have those kind of meetings, but it's kind of helpful to have a lot of people meet at the same time. And then of course, if somebody says, you know, I have some specific personal things that I need to go through with you, of course, we'll have a one-on-one meeting. But I feel like casting directors are saying that they like the self-tapes and the EcoCast lives too. A lot of casting directors have given up their offices and will only just rent an office for the day or whatever for whatever production is happening. But I feel like we should have already been doing this in this world. We should have already been doing things electronically like this. Now, I gotta say, there's a lot of people that didn't make the jump over to self-tapes and especially EcoCast lives. How many of you tried to do an EcoCast live on a tablet or a phone with Wi-Fi and it froze and it doesn't work? And my email had it like 5 or 6 times in red and bold. You can't use Wi-Fi, you can't use a phone. And, you know, then I'll get these, you know, frantic calls. I froze, I can't do it. And I'm like, well, did you read my email? Because it was very specific. So there's a lot of people that might not make that jump technologically. And, you know, I hope that there's people that can help those kinds of people that really want to keep acting, but, you know, have to make that jump technologically. It's hard.
Yeah. And for everybody here, you know, for SAG-AFTRA members, the foundation does have an on-camera lab where, you know, our guys are there for tech help every day, everything, all of our services are free.
So great, so great. So I know they have great self-tape helps and things like that. So good.
What you're talking about strikes me as a fairly unique communication style with your clients, that they're able to just have this big Zoom with you. It sounds like amazing access. And so I'd love to just talk to you a little bit about, you know, what your rules of communication are. You've said, you know, if somebody needs a one-on-one, that's fine, you know, but what other rules do you have, especially around sort of feedback?
Okay, so what I tell my actors is I am always accessible, but you have to get in touch with me certain ways. You know, if I wake up in the morning and I have a 10-page all caps, manifesto run on, that you've been up all night thinking about your acting career and everybody hates you and should I quit? Should I jump off the ledge? Should I divorce? I get those kind of emails and I can't even handle that. And, I wake up in the morning and I'm already submitting, I'm already sending out auditions and things like that. And so I always, back before COVID, I was like, don't just show up at my office because I'm busy and you'll be distracting me from what I'm trying to get you work. I'm trying to work. And so I always say, I give out my cell phone and I say, send me a text. If you have a really quick question, I can answer a text really quick. Really, if it's a yes or no or a one sentence, they should quit and get a therapist. It's true. But we do have to behave like, it gets really weird in an intimate way with your agent, especially an agent that cares and really, does want to know about your whole being, things like that. It does make it a little easier, harder. But I do tell people, if it's not the scurry of, you have an audition, you have a callback, please confirm, here's your sides, I'm waiting for the sides, here you go, that kind of back and forth, which gets really crazy and everyone needs an answer quickly. I need a confirmation quickly. You need to figure out your schedule so that you can do the audition or do the shoot or whatever. And so that kind of thing happens really quickly, but it's the offline stuff. It's the, hey, can you look at my headshots? Can we go through my talent report and see, I'm getting new headshots. What kind of roles have you submitted me for? Things like that. I tell them to email me and put it in the subject line. Just say medium, cold, hot, or red alert, or DEFCON 5 or whatever. I'll take some Star Trek and Star Wars kind of warnings and stuff like that, so I know what to look for, because there are some things that can wait until 11 o'clock at night when I'm watching TV, and I can answer some of those things. And then there's some things that need to be, I know everyone who has an audition, everyone who's shooting on a given day. And so if I get a call from somebody like that that's on set, I'm going to answer that phone call right away, because I know there's probably something that I need to assist with. So I'm very clear about my levels of communication, because I want it to be open and I want people to be able to get in touch with me. I mean, I can't tell you how many people say, I'm scared to ask my agent this question. I don't want to bug her. Yeah, I'm busy. We're busy. My assistants are busy. We're busy all the time. I have to say that throughout COVID and throughout this new year, we have had this incredible jump in auditions and bookings in both cities that I'm so pleased. And it really has to do with my actors doing such a good job of making the jump, doing the training. I'm getting off course, but doing the training during COVID, just bettering themselves, raising the levels of professionalism and things like that. So I want to be open, but it has to be within the parameters of don't call me. Usually a call isn't good, but if you text me to call you, I'll call you. How's that?
I think that sounds amazing. I want to ask you though about, after somebody has done an audition, they've sent in a self-tape, they think they were amazing and they nudge you for information. Are you going to reach out to the casting director, or under what terms might you do that? Or, or is it just like you get a call back or you don't, that's your feedback? How do you feel about that?
It's the hardest thing. And I am so glad that I'm not an actor. I don't know how you guys do it. I really don't know how you do what you do without, because I mean, how many of you just, it's just a thing. You do the audition and then sometimes you don't hear anything. So, and I've talked to casting directors, and casting directors overwhelmingly say it's not my job to give feedback. If they want feedback, they need to go to a workshop or a showcase or something like that to get feedback. To get, boy, I can't look at the comments. This business is like a bad boyfriend. I love it. But here's the thing. There's sometimes when I'm like, dude, that audition was the best audition that I've ever seen for this role, for that this actor has done, or, and so there are times when something tugs at me, because I watch all the tapes. And now that because I didn't get to go in the room with you to audition, right. I didn't get to see your auditions, but now I'm seeing everyone's tapes because I can see them on the EcoCast. So I'm watching everybody's work, and changing my opinion of a people, good or bad, you know, but it's amazing to be able to watch everyone's tapes and be like, oh my God, that was so good. And I know the show, you know, I'm a fan of the show, so I know the tone and stuff like that. So I might, and it's a big role if it's usually if it's a guest star or recurring or support, you know, supporting role, and I feel like they really did connect to the material. I can write to the casting director and be like, hey, is so-and-so in the mix for this? You know, but I'm not gonna get, it's very rare that I get any feedback, unless, I mean, I can sit here and tell you bad stories all day. I've had, you know, casting directors call me and say, dude was drunk. We don't know if he's driving away or what's happening, but the liquid courage was, you know, and, you know, they called actually out of concern, you know, and so that kind of feedback is kind of good to know, that I know that this actor was going to an audition drunk, and I called him and he was on the bus, thankfully. But you know, I hear those ones where they're like, they brought an actual gun to the audition, you know, it's just, you know, ugh. So, so I get the bad feedback sometimes, and I promise my actors that I will always tell them if I get any feedback, but it's usually inappropriate to ask for feedback. Is how I feel about it. The best feedback is getting another audition with that casting director. That's the best feedback. So that means that you could have given the best audition of the day, you could have given the best audition of your life and still not get the role because you weren't right for it. That doesn't mean that they're like, you know what, we're gonna remember that person and bring them back in for something else because they were good. They weren't right for this one, you know, for reasons totally beyond your control. But it's just so hard. I don't know how you guys do it, but it's not anyone's business to get feedback. And I really feel uncomfortable asking a lot of casting directors for feedback on co-star roles because they're busy. They're moving on, you know.
I love that you're watching all of your clients' tapes, though. I do think that that's exceptional. And it leads me to think that, you know, the massive positive from that is that what you can see when your clients are doing great work, but not booking. So can you talk to me about when you change your roster, how you change your roster, if, you know, what gets an actor struck from your roster? And is there one system that you think you have?
I would say it moves over into sort of the relationship business, the relationship part of my brain. If people don't answer me, if they don't, you know, if they don't respond, that they can't do an audition or can't go to an audition, or they don't respond, you know, when I've said, hey, I noticed that you don't have something, you know, I know that you booked a job. Why don't you have a clip up for it? You know, why aren't you doing the business of acting stuff? Your headshots are from 2010, you know? And so, well, I haven't changed that much. Well, you know, I can tell because I did photography for years and years and years, and we have different styles that we go through with headshots, and we could talk about headshots a whole nother day, but there is something to be said about having current headshots that sort of reflect the look of the day, sort of the style and things like that, so that casting directors accept that information as new current information. And so I would say that mostly if somebody's getting regular auditions, and every once in a while I'll go in and I will look at an actor's ratio between submissions and auditions, and then secondly, auditions to bookings. I'm looking for submission to audition ratio being the good ratio, because if you're viable, if you're being submitted and you're getting auditions, you are viable. You are worth continuing to work for. I do a lot of work for free. You know, I only get paid when an actor books. And so I'm doing that job believing that one of those auditions will book and I will get money, you know, I will get paid from our relationship. And so, so it is a secondary thing, if that makes sense, the ratio between auditions and bookings. However, if I have somebody on the roster that's been there for 5 years, gets regular auditions and doesn't book, we might have to have a talk because something's going on. Why would you have that many auditions and not book something? And so, you know, it's a hard thing. So I have to look at everything. Are they a really specific type of character actor that only comes around every once in a while? You know, those kind of roles only come around once in a while. So It's hard to say, but I would say that the thing that makes me really want to break a relationship with an actor is not communicating or lying, and not communicating, and then I see that you're on Instagram at Cabo, and you didn't even answer or book out. You didn't book out, or you didn't tell me that you were going somewhere. And so it goes back to that trust and that respect of the relationship. And so if I send you an audition, it's always okay to say, no, I want to pass on this one, or I'm not in the right frame of mind, or my kid is sick, or, I don't want to, I read the, I don't like the content. It's always okay at the audition level to say, I want to pass on this, but I always want to talk about it. But just not answering me doesn't fly.
Yeah. That leads me a little bit to think about expectations, particularly with new clients. What are your expectations for new clients?
In New Mexico, I say that my expectations are that you have current headshots that are of a professional quality, not just my mom has a camera, and, went to Costco and bought a camera and can take good pictures. But they need to be professional level. They need to be pinpointed to your type and your branding. And I think, does the SAG Foundation do branding?
We used to do it in person.
In person.
Been doing it virtually, but
so anyway, those kinds of things, hopefully those will come back up with the SAG Foundation. I've actually known clients that went through it and said it was really helpful for trying to figure out headshots, because your headshot is really your first audition. And so you want your headshots to really relate to the type of person you are and to feel authentic. Don't just go to Western Warehouse, and buy, Western clothes when you're, a lawyer from New York. Sometimes it doesn't work. But oh no, I forgot it. So new clients. And so I need all your materials. I need your resume, I need a PDF resume, and I need your Actors Access resume. I need headshots. I need any clips that you have. And I need, a guarantee that you will do this, will do what I ask you to do, basically. And so sometimes I'll sign a new person, they look great first. And here's the thing about local markets: when you submit a new person in a local market, I would say 99% of the time you'll get that first audition, because the local casting director is going, who's this new person? And so that's your big audition for that casting director. You're not only auditioning for that one role, you're auditioning for the casting director for future roles. And so if you get that first audition, and then that casting director doesn't bring you in, and they're a busy office that's doing episode after episode of a TV show, something might be wrong. If you don't get asked back. Like I said, your best feedback is getting asked back. So those are the kinds of things that I look for with new clients, is having all your materials together, understanding the communication process, so that we can do all of this stuff as quickly and as efficiently as we can.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. One more quick question before I go to the audience questions. Because you're in New Mexico, and you mentioned a lot of the long-running shows in New Mexico, there have always been 2 or 3 mainstays, I feel like, that actors could audition for. But over the last few years, we keep hearing about how Netflix are pouring all of this money and resources and building in New Mexico. Have you seen that impact yet? And what do you think this looks like for the future of New Mexico for actors?
Well, personally, I hope that towards the end game of this is that we turn into another Atlanta, with so many sound stages and so much room for productions to come in. Right now, Netflix bought the biggest existing studio in New Mexico, so it didn't really add sound stages to the general population. They just took over a studio, but they've been buying up all the land around it. And so there is talk of more stages, sound stages, and more office space, production offices, wood, prop shops and all that kind of stuff. But so far, just buying an existing studio doesn't exactly mean that more stuff is going to come, but it will come. They're also talking about working as a training center for crew and for actors and things like that. But the other thing is NBC Universal has bought
Right.
property here. Amazon Studios has brought things here. And so I think that it will happen, but it's not like everything is so crazy because Netflix is here. Netflix is here and they're buying up land is what's happening right now. And so I have super great hopes for the future. But it's, you know, it's going to take some time for them to take over other buildings and retrofit them for what they need and build new construction on land, develop that land. There's a lot of land in New Mexico that we can use. And I hope that it turns into more room for us to work on bigger projects and more projects at the same time.
Yeah, it sounds great. Yeah, I forgot about NBC Universal, and it's great to hear that Amazon are coming too. It all sounds very positive. So here we come. Amy Lear, and I apologize in advance if I mispronounce anybody's names. Amy Lee Pearsall is asking, you know, how often would you say that you submit New Mexico-based clients for work in other markets?
It's been very interesting. During the pandemic, we would get breakdowns from all over the country. And it's continued to be that way. And so I've been submitting my actors for things that are in New York, Atlanta, LA, through the New Mexico market. Then I have to be careful to make sure that they don't have an Atlanta agent or an LA agent that I don't want to overstep any bounds or cross any of those kind of professionally, you know, I have to stay respectful of other markets agents. But if I know they don't have another agent and they're right for that role, I'm going to submit them and say that, you know, and say it's, you know, this is from New Mexico. This person's in New Mexico. So we've been getting stuff from all over in New Mexico, in the New Mexico market. And then in LA, you know, the LA breakdowns go out and there's stuff shooting all over the country that go through the LA breakdowns. But a lot of times it's the, you know, the higher level of roles, guest stars, recurring, supporting roles, series regulars and things like that come through LA. Every once in a while they come through New Mexico though, and it's pretty fun. So
that's great. Joy Rinaldi is asking, what are acceptable ways to stay in touch with agents and managers? You know, is it appropriate for people to contact, she's not asking this, but I am asking, you know, is it appropriate, for instance, for the people who are watching this to live with us today or just the video to contact you? And if so, how is it appropriate for them to contact you?
To contact me personally?
Yes.
I have a online submission form on my website, mitchelltalent.com. It's an online form, and it's really important that you submit there for actual submissions because it's a kind of a test. And you should watch every agent's methods for submitting for representation, because for me it's kind of a trick. It's a trick question because, you know, if you don't follow those instructions on my submission form, how can I trust that you're going to follow my instructions when I have to send you to set and your reputation, my reputation is on the line. So I need to know that you can follow my directions. And so submitting through the website is the best thing.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. And that's, you know, great advice, you know, about following directions with your submissions. We've got a lot of questions here about marketing materials and just asking sort of more specifics. You know, Kevin Gantz, is asking for more, how to make yourself more marketable. Do you have any tips for things that people can add? You know, obviously we're talking headshots, reels, websites, clips, social media. Is there anything that really stands out to you in marketing materials?
I would say, like I said earlier, having current headshots and I think gone are the days of just, here's my smiling headshot and here's my serious headshot. Those days are gone. You know, we need to have here's my principal at a high school, you know, here's my doctor, here's, you know, and not cheesy, not costumey and cheesy, but we're looking at feelings. We're looking at what you're portraying. You know, do you have your hair up with nice jewelry, or do you have a very trim beard, or are you more of a, you know, woolly Western guy? You know, those kinds of things. I know I'm just one of the things about watching everybody's tapes is that every man has more hair everywhere than they did at the beginning of COVID, and everyone's hair is grown out and nobody looks like their headshots anymore. And so it's really good to have honestly, people change. They change when their hair grows out or their beard grows out. It changes how you feel about them. It changes the look that you're sending out. And so it might be that I could submit you for a different kind of role than I could before because you look totally different. But as far as materials go, it's really important to have every good clip. You can have a reel that's really extensive and long and really in depth, but it's super important that you have clips that are just so fast that, you know, some experts have said we have about 7 seconds of a casting director's time if they look at your reel, if they look at a clip or a reel. So having reels, having clips up that are really well described so that they can look through all of your clips on Actors Access and say, doctor, okay, I'm going to look at that one, and then don't front load it with, you know, a big sweeping Sound of Music kind of shot. It should be your face talking. Just go to that. It doesn't have to have context. And so we need to really show them your best work at the beginning of the clip. Reels are for, you know, showing a wonderful scene or, you know, doing things a little more in depth. Also, if you have a scene with somebody who's on the famous side, you might want to have them in your clip too. So so we can sort of say, oh, you worked with somebody good. So I would say a lot of people ask me about the making your own clips, doing your, you know, sort of, there's people that will do, they'll spend a day shooting different clips and they'll do a wide shot, a close up over the shoulder and just do like one scene, just so you'll have something, especially if you haven't worked for 20 years or something like that and you're getting back in the game, you look totally different. I am all for those kinds of professionally shot, almost like an indie sort of good sound, good audio, good video. And then once you get other things, you can take those off. But I always say, say it what it is. Don't pretend it's a real movie. Just say scene study, broken, abused mom or something, you know what I mean? Something like that, so that the casting directors don't think you're lying about a movie that you were in, but it's a scene study so that we can see you talking. And don't forget slate shots. Slate shots are always pretty important too, because that's another way of them seeing you talk. I'm from Wisconsin. You can tell I'm from Wisconsin, and you know, it's kind of funny, you know, to actually hear somebody talk. That might round out their essence, hearing them talk. So I am all for that kind of quick, professionally done sort of scene that sort of shows off a really good quality that you might have for a good kind of a certain category of a role. And so I would say, and then I would say, watch your social media. I would say it's not about your following, but it's about, don't be a dummy on social media. Don't be a dick. Don't show too much. Don't if you have very strong opinions politically, or you if you have, honestly, I'm just going to say, like, language, or you have other things that you do in your life, start a personal one that don't make it private so not everyone can see it. I do look at social media when I have a new client that I don't know very well. I look at their social media and see if they're behaving in a professional manner. It's all out there. Everyone can see it. So turn things private if you don't want the world to see it. Create an actor page, an actor Instagram, especially with children. I see one of my favorite moms, hi Shannon, on here. And she's so good about keeping her kids protected by the kind of social media that they do, and so that people can't tell where they are, or things like that. So that's what I say. I say people are looking at your social media for your character, so make sure that your best character is forward. if you want to become a, somebody who's professional. It will show up again, and it will turn against you.
Great advice. Adam Pilver says that he's only booked co-stars, and he rarely goes out for guest stars. He's taken a little bit of time out, but now his reputation only wants him to audition for guest stars, not co-stars. He's feeling like he should just book some co-stars to get the momentum back again. What's your take on that?
It's really hard to level up, even from going from not having an agent or doing background work to going to the co-star. Sometimes it takes that jump to level up like that. And it takes that same kind of jump to be submitted for larger roles when you've only done co-stars. And, I've had this conversation. I have a lot of actors that are at the guest star level. I know that they're at the guest star level, but we have to get somebody to give them a chance on that first guest star audition and that first guest star booking, and then it kind of can roll together. But I would say if you have a TV show that really speaks to you, that is on your bucket list or something like that, look at the casting director and see what other shows they're working on. Look and see if you could maybe be submitted for guest stars on another show that casting director works on. I'm sorry, co-stars. Do it, look for co-stars on another show. Or honestly, it's sometimes it's crickets when you're trying to jump to that next level. It's really, really hard to make that jump. And you have to have reps that believe in you, that will really fight for you and say, look, I know that this is a guest star, but look at this co-star that they did. Take a look at this clip, really try to pitch them to again, my reputation is there to make them believe in the actor. And so, but then, if we go to all this trouble to pitch and someone says, okay, we're going to give you a guest star audition or a series regular or recurring or something like that, you got to bring it. Because if you don't bring it, then I look like a fool and you never get brought in again. So, it's not something to be taken lightly to go to that next step. It takes a lot of work, a lot of patience, a lot of communication with your reps. And I love working with great managers. All throughout the day, I'll be like, hey, did you see that? Did you see that breakdown? Do you know anyone in that office that we can call? And trying to like tag team it with a manager rep and try to double team it a little bit, especially for something that's like, I know this person is perfect for this role and I want them to get that audition. I want them to nail it. And then it gets, that's where my creativity comes in, being an artist and all that kind of stuff. People ask how I get my creativity. That's my creativity. It's, I know that this actor is perfect for this role. How can we, let you see this actor?
That's awesome. Everybody wants representation that's going to be on their team in that way. That's amazing. And I love that you obviously feel that way about all of your clients, and you wouldn't take them if you didn't, which sort of leads me to Sarah Bibbo has a question about what experience are you looking for from the clients that you take on? And somebody else earlier, sorry, I didn't catch the name, is asking what you look for in a resume. What stands out to you in a resume when you're looking at new clients?
When I'm looking at new clients, it depends on what level they're at. If they've been recommended from a manager or another friend or things like that, I'm looking at it a little bit differently than just a cold resume. If I'm looking at somebody that's just starting out and is looking for representation, I look, did they do background? Did they do theater? Did they do musical theater? Did they do improv? Did they, what kind of training have they taken? What kind of short films have they done? What kind of independent films? And a resume should very clearly show all of that kind of stuff. I love it when people's resumes say, in film, whether it's a short or a feature, because you could have, 50 credits on your resume that are all leads, but they were all shorts. That's great. And I love it. And people can really use that to your advantage. But I'm also looking for other kinds of roles and other kind of things. So I look through everyone's resume, but I look at all of the categories: training, live performance, I love improv, I love theater, I love musical theater, comedy, I love all that kind of stuff. And I look at training and then look at you know, you have to look at how long that person might have been working and see what their resume looks like after a certain amount of time. So there's lots of XY coordinates for looking at a person's resume.
Thank you for sharing. Joshua Ledesma is asking a question that comes up fairly regularly about getting the timing of getting self-tapes in. If you have a window of time, his question is it really more important to spend as much time as possible to get the best performance possible? Or is it better to just get in there early in the window?
It's such a great question. And I'm of several minds on this one. First of all, please do not wait until the last minute. And when I say last minute, I'm talking about the last like 2 hours before something is due, because there's Murphy's Law. There will always be something that goes wrong technically. There will always be something that happens. Your internet might go out and you might not have uploaded it, you know, things like that. There's always problems. And it's such an anxiety like triggering thing for me to be looking at all of these unsubmitted EcoCasts, and then I have to text everybody and call everybody and be like, your audition was due at 1, how come I don't see it yet? You know, I'm working on it, I've been trying to upload it for 3 hours, you know. So don't wait till the last minute, because that's going to make me mad. If I have to go hunt you down because your audition is looming, that's not a good thing for me. So I don't like that. However, I do say that casting directors as a whole, this is a general, but as a whole, they look at the tapes as they come in, and they say that sometimes in the breakdowns. They say, please get it in as soon as possible. We look at them as they come in, you know, and you know, you don't want them to fall in love with somebody else just because you got yours in late. I had one actor that told me he thought that the due date of, you know, the deadline for a self-tape was actually kind of more like the audition time. And so he wanted to get them in as close to the audition time, which was the deadline, as possible. And that's not the case. The case is you should do your work, you should be sharp, and you should be ready. Most auditions, they have been giving a little bit of extra time for self-tapes, but sometimes they're due the next day, or you have a EcoCast the next day, just like you had a in-person audition. And so then you got to get ready. But honestly, I feel like you got to get it in as soon as possible. That's my opinion. And to, you know, if you work on it, I know people are working and have families at home and all that kind of stuff, but if you were given a week to do it, or 5 days to do it, and you still don't have it in an hour or two before the deadline, that's BS. You just didn't plan right. You didn't plan your life right. And I know it, you know, so just do it, just get it done, do the work, do the preparation, get your coach going, you know, run the lines, do all that kind of stuff, schedule it at the self-tape, whatever you have to do all that stuff right when you get the audition. Well, I couldn't find a reader. Oh, I couldn't get in, you know. Well, you don't find that out the day it's due. You find that out right when you get the audition. So I'm kind of a hard ass about that. I think you should be professional enough to get it going right when you get the email.
Yeah, that's great. Do the work. We're running out of time. I'm so sorry.
I told you I talk a lot.
No, you have been so generous and amazing. But Amanda Melby has brought up a question asking that now that so many people are being vaccinated, have you seen that change any of the requirements for actors working on set, the pre-work quarantining, any of that? Have you seen any changes in requirements?
I have not. In fact, people, I'm typing my, no, I can't even do that. I can't type at the same time. Let's see. So people that have been vaccinated and have their cards and everything are still asked to get the test. I think I've got my correct email. There we go. Yeah, and like I said, it's changing every week. So hold on to your card, you know, hold on to your vaccine card, and do all that stuff. But you're still going to be asked to be COVID tested, because they, you know, that's just how it's going to go for a while. You know, and there's talk of fourth waves and things like that. So, you know, different strains. And so I think we're going to be in this for a while. We're going to have to be COVID tested. You know, at any given time, they might be like, you know what, you know, send us a copy of your vaccination records, you know, and we'll, you know, we'll take that as your COVID. That's going to come in the future, I think, but now it's not. Now it's everyone is still taking COVID tests.
All right, that's great. Now we have loads more questions, and I'm so sorry that we haven't gotten to them all, but I think this is a fantastic one to end with. Art Trian is asking, what are the top 3 things you look for in actors that you want to work with?
I find that I'm so different than most agents. I find that I'm looking for people that I can talk to, that I could sit down at coffee and have a really great communicative discourse where we understand each other's language and we can talk and stuff, because all this is communication. You know, my job is to communicate with the actor what their audition is, or, you know, what role they're looking at and things like that. And so I'm always looking for people that have good communication skills and good interpersonal skills that make it, you know, I don't know if any of you have ever cast a movie or done any of that kind of stuff, but if you've done casting, you can tell within a few seconds of somebody walking in a room if they're a weirdo or not, and whether you'd want to be invited to the party, which is the project, you know. And so there's being good weirdos. I'm a kind of a good weirdo, you know. I like Star Wars and stuff like that, but there's weirdos where you're like, we don't want to work with that person. And it's all nonverbal. It's all quick communication that our brain does really fast. And so work on yourself. Be the very best version of yourself. Be confident in yourself. If you're not confident in yourself, I can't be confident in you. I can't believe in you if you don't believe in yourself. It sounds trite. It sounds cliche, but you know, I can't believe in somebody that doesn't believe in themselves. Oh, is that from Pretty in Pink? Yeah, it is. Anyway, so I would say that, you know, and then seeing people work on their craft at whatever level they're at. Are they still in training? Are they working on it? Who are they training with? Are they leveling up in their training? Are they leveling up in writing their own material, doing their own projects to showcase their own, you know, their own great qualities and their own great skills? So I'm looking for those kinds of things. I'm not always looking at a resume, except for I'm looking at what, you know, people are doing currently.
That's so fantastic. Carissa, our hour is up.
No.
I know it went like that, and you've just been so generous. I really can't thank you enough. Let's all give you a round of applause.
Thank you. And I do want to say I do have a show every other week called Actors Call Time, where I bring people on, and I bring casting directors on, and I bring producers and actors on, and we talk about it. You can find that at the Box ABQ on YouTube, and and you can watch those later too. But I love talking to people, and I really appreciate everyone taking time today.
Thank you so much, Carissa. We're going to look for that. The Box ABQ on YouTube. Is that it? Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks guys.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Thank you.